Hi and welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah. Today we're going to talk about which yarns are best for knitting cables. Hi and welcome to Knit with Hannah. I'm Hannah. I'm here with Knitting Natter to help you learn to knit the easy way. And it's not knitting the easy way, it's knitting so that you can actually see what you've knitted today. Because knitting with the best yarns for cabling means that your cables will be shown off. Really impressive. People will actually think, she's put a lot of effort into that, I can really see it. And the yarns can make all the difference. So I'll talk about that in today's video. If you've been watching for the last couple of weeks, you will know that we have been cabling. We've talked about which skills you need and which tools you need before you start cabling. And also we've done the very first demo for knitting abbreviation. Go and have a look at those last two videos as well if you like. And of course in those two there was also a free pattern download for your first cable project. So go and look at the link in the description and you can find that too. Let's talk now about which yarns are best for knitting cables. I've got lots of examples here of cable items knitted up with different yarns. So let's have a look at them all now and see which ones you prefer, which ones might be better to choose, which ones will really show off your cables. So already you might be thinking, I can really see the cables on these. Let's have a look deeper into these to start with. So it's very obvious as we look at them straight away that these are single colours. It's a green and it's a purple, and you can see the shadows, especially on this because it's a slightly lighter tone, but this one you can still see the shadows on it as well, and I really like the effect here. You can also see the ribbing really well alongside the shadows on the cable. So this is quite a shiny yarn. It's made up of wool and acrylic, and when you feel it, it's really soft to the touch. So there's not a lot of fuzziness in this yarn. That really does help when it comes to cabling. There's enough fuzziness to hold the stitches together, but not so much that you can't see the cable. That's one reason I really like this. Both of these are knitted up in chunky yarns. This one is 100% wool. There are some fibres coming off of these yarns holding these stitches together, but this one is minimal. It's 100% wool, but it is still very smooth. The other thing to note, and you may want to go and look at this video here, these are both plied yarns. They have multiple plies. This has 3 and I think this one has 3 as well. So that is holding the yarn together strongly. It's giving it a smoother edge and it really is giving definition to the stitches. So that's one thing to note. What we've figured out here is that they are single coloured yarns and that they are plied and they are relatively smooth yarns as well. This one is again a plain yarn, but it has mohair in it, so it's slightly more fuzzy. If you compare it to this one, the colours are of a similar tone. You can't quite see the shadows quite so well. They're not. This one isn't any darker like this one is. It's still a bright colour, but you can't quite see the shadows. The definition isn't there because it's a fuzzy wool rather than a smooth wool. And that also is the same with the ribbing. Can't quite see that it's there. However, the colour, the single colour, the plain colour means that you do see the cables, you do see the shadows there, just not quite so well as you would do if it was if it didn't have mohair in the yarn. Now, when we come to moving away from plain colours, this is an option. It's a tweed colour. This is a plummy purple colour and you can see the shadows in this quite well. You can see the cabling effect quite well. This is probably because firstly it's a chunky yarn, but secondly because again it's a plied yarn. When you pick the yarn apart you'll see that it's made up of multiple threads. That means that it's quite smooth. So the smoothness, the way that the yarn holds itself together really does define the stitches, and you can see the shadows quite well on this. I would say over a larger piece this was a really good yarn to do like a cabled jumper or a long cabled scarf, for example. It's not quite so good for this small headband. I would probably go for a single colour over this, but over a larger item with more cables on it, it would look pretty good. Now, as we move into the fuzzy yarns again, this is one thing to note. This has got mohair in it. I really like this yarn, it's really comfortable. But what I've done with this on purpose to make sure the cables stand out is make them really tight. This is cabled over 4 rows rather than usually we do it over 6 rows. So it's quite a tight, close together plait, and it looks effective. You can see the shadow on either side of the cable as well as in between the cable pieces there, and that works quite well. So you can really make sure that you're thinking about exactly which yarns you're choosing for which pattern of cable too. It could be a really big point when you're thinking about the yarns that you're picking out for your different patterns. So that's something to note. Now, these two are cabled patterns with multicolored yarns, and both of these change colour pretty much with every stitch. So you are not only looking at the cables, but you're looking at the coloured yarn as well. Now, especially with this pattern, you don't really notice the cables that much. They are there. You can see the difference between the right side and the wrong side of the stitches here. You can kind of see the shift here, but the cables are quite a distance apart. There's only a small part of it. It's a DK yarn, so it's thin and you can't really see the effect very well. So I would say avoid this kind of yarn unless you are happy to knit cabling and actually want to show the yarn off. If you want to say, this is my favourite yarn, I will knit whatever I like with it, then go for it. Same with this. It's a case of, yes, it stands out because it's a chunky knit yarn rather than a thinner weight, so it does stand out, but not quite so well as it would if you were picking a different one for this pattern. So it really does notice that this isn't quite so obvious that it's a cable pattern as these are. You can also take note of how this yarn is made as well. This is a single ply yarn, so it's made up with just fibre twisted into one thread. That means that these stitches do hold together, but it's still very fuzzy and there isn't a great deal of stitch definition. So this again is, if you love this yarn, knit whatever you like with it. It's just if you really want to show the cables off, then I would avoid this, especially over the smaller pieces that you're knitting, like this headband. So those are your options. You can pick any yarn you like when you're knitting cabling. It doesn't have to be exactly what I say, but if you want the cabling to really be shown off, then you want a smooth yarn, you want a single colour, you want a bright colour so the shadows really show off as well, and really pick out the cable pattern that would match the yarn really well. Like I said, this is a mohair yarn, so it's quite a fuzzy yarn, but because it's a really tight cable, then you can really see the cabling very well. So there you go. Great, so now you know which yarns to pick best for cables. And I've basically used all of those techniques when I was choosing the yarns for this. This is a plain yarn, it's plied, and it's a medium thickness, so the cables show off very well with this. They're big and they're bold. Now, what I also will show you is this. This is the final project once it's come off of the needles, but it's all bunched together. So if you go and sign up for the pattern, then I will show you how to flatten it out, how to finalise your knitting, and make some really great placemats and coasters for teapots or your mug of tea. And yeah, do enjoy that pattern. The link is in the description below. Great, I do hope this was helpful for you. Do give me a thumbs up if you've liked this video and click on the subscription link as well. I'll be here next week and many weeks to come. Every Tuesday I'm here with a new video, and hit on the bell as well. That will give you notifications whenever I bring out a new video. That's every Tuesday, every week. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Happy knitting.